Good day, students. It is time for the fourth installment of this series, where I attempt to give you an overview of each unit's eidolons and my recommendations on whether or not they are worth the Stellar Jade's investment. Since they have released quite a few banger units in quick succession, going on a vertical investment on your account might be detrimental. But even so, for those of you who already have an established roster of units and are looking to improve it, this will be a series to watch. Just as Himeko took everyone by surprise with her comeback in the meta, let us also take a look at how the Erudition cast's Eidolons can surprise you, after the obligatory disclaimers, of course. Please note that these recommendations are based on my personal experience with the units, how they perform at E0, and what they lack in their base form. As such, I have formulated this guide based on the importance of each eidolon in fixing a particular unit problem from its base kit. This guide is highly subjected to subjectivity on my end, even though I have tried to keep it as objective as possible. Therefore, if you feel a certain eidolon works better for you compared to what I am about to mention, that is entirely your prerogative, and each and every one of you is entitled to play the game as you want. As always, every piece of content in this game can be fully cleared with E0 units without issue. I will go briefly on each unit's strengths and main weaknesses in the next section, so you will better understand the analysis of each eidolon in the following section. Also, each eidolon will be analyzed, considering you already had the previous eidolon and are debating the investment needed to secure the one in question as well. This is why you will see some units have their E1 not recommended, but their E2 recommended. I will not go over the E3 and E5 eidolons of the units, because these are just extra levels for all your abilities on each unit. And of course, all of them are worth getting because they are just straight-up damage buffs for each of the units. I will just leave you with a note on which unit is applicable, so you can know which one of the two will provide the most damage. Let's take a look at what you should be looking for in eidolons for units on this path. For Erudition units, you want to aim for the eidolons that will provide your unit with additional ways of dealing damage, especially in single-target scenarios, as this is the biggest weakness they have. Eidolons which will provide you with additional stats to boost your damage or increased multipliers are amazing as well. Also, eidolons that provide you with energy are always great, so you can smooth out your rotation. Herta, amazing in AoE content, especially if the enemy is weak to ice. Also, you can max out her eidolons for free, which is a nice bonus. To compensate for AoE potential, her single target performance is abysmal, as you lose the procs from her follow-up attacks. Qingque, a great 4-star damage dealer who received some nice toys recently and does well in both AoE and single-target scenarios. She's potentially very hungry skill point-wise if your luck is bad, and to circumvent this, you will have to rely on her ultimate. She also needs a decent amount of investment stat-wise to really get rolling. Serval. She can function well in both single-target and AoE scenarios, thanks to her ultimate's low energy cost. She is a great shock generator, so for units that appreciate the enemies being shocked consistently, she is a good option. A mix between standard and DOT damage means that you will want to build a mix of the traditional attack and speed for DOT units with a bit of crit stats as well to optimize her damage. Argenti. Great in both AoE and single target, as his ultimate can fluctuate the target receiving the damage depending on the scenario you find yourself in, but outside of his ultimate, his AoE damage is also great and he gets a good amount of crit stats, making him easy to build. A double-edged sword, his strength is also his weakness. While his ultimate is flexible, to truly max out its damage, he needs a high level of energy, which outside of full AoE content like pure fiction or external sources, such as Huo or Jing Yuan, will be hard to achieve. Himeko, amazing in AoE scenarios, works well as a secondary DPS, especially in follow-up teams, which break shields more consistently. While amazing in AoE, she is pretty abysmal in single-target scenarios, and if you cannot consistently break the enemy shields, her damage will fall off a cliff. Jing Yuan. Impressive AoE damage, especially when the Lightning Lord hits, also got some new toys in the recent patches, most notably Sparkle, which can buff the Lightning Lord damage as well, not just his own. He is also a great shield breaker, as every instance of the Lightning Lord's damage is counted independently of each other. Most of his damage is backloaded, meaning he struggles in fast-paced content. He struggles against enemies with a large amount of CC in their kit, since if he gets crowd-controlled, the Lightning Lord will not do its damage. Herta. As you get all her Eidolons for free, there is no analysis to be made. Just unlock them and start building her. Qingque. E1. A small damage boost to her ultimate, based on the amount you get from it not worth it. E2. Small energy gain from drawing tiles, but the amount is not impactful enough for it to be recommended. E4. It adds a new layer of gambling, but when you win the gamble, you win big. This one is her biggest spike in damage, and therefore it is recommended for maximizing her damage. E6. The skill point recovery is decent, as you will alleviate some of her SP issues, but if you pair her with Sparkle, this one is not recommended. Serval. E1. Turns her basic attack into a semi-blast type attack, which could help you with the enemy toughness bar reduction, but it's not really something to write home about, therefore not recommended. E2. Decent energy gain when her talent procs. This will help her cycle through her ultimate even faster. Decent pickup. E4. A quality of life Eidolon that allows her ultimate to apply the same shock as her skill, which effectively means you will not only do more damage, but you can get by with less hit rate needed on her, as the ultimate chance to apply the shock is higher when compared with her skill. Good pickup. E6. A damage increase against targets affected by shock, and if you reach this point, the enemies will most likely be shocked permanently. Therefore, this one is also recommended, as it's pretty much a non-conditional damage buff for her. Argenti. E1. A decent damage increase, but considering you can get crit damage from other units and you might already have decent pieces, this one is not recommended. E2. Another decent damage increase for his ultimate, but the amount is not high enough to make a big difference, so this one is also not recommended. E4. More crit rate and crit damage, which translates into an easier time farming for relics, but again, the values are nothing all that amazing, so this one is also not recommended. E6. Pretty big damage increase for his ultimate, as the defense ignore is of a decent amount, and you are boosting your damage exponentially, mostly because this amount will stack on top of other defense ignore or reduction units. As this is his highest damage increase, this one is recommended. Himeko. E1. A fair amount of speed is provided, although you will see much more use out of it in AoE scenarios where you can trigger Victory Rush consistently. For this case, you could adjust your build into more crit stats and forego the speed stats. Decent pickup, as you will mostly bring her in AoE content. E2. Pretty restrictive condition for the passive to activate, and also its value is not that great, therefore this one is not recommended. E4. It helps her trigger more follow-up attacks via her skill, translating to more damage. But since you need to break the enemies with her skill for it to activate, this one is also not recommended, as it requires a great deal of management on your side to make sure you break the enemies as needed. Otherwise, it will be of no use. E6. Decent damage increase to her ultimate. This is her biggest damage increase, so it is recommended to get it. Jing Yuan. E1. Good damage increase for AoE scenarios. This effect will not trigger for single target scenarios. Decent pickup as it boosts his damage in AoE by a fair amount. E2. Restrictive damage buff for his other abilities apart from Lightning Lord. This one is not recommended as the buff is not really that great looking at his overall damage. E4. Solves his energy issues by providing him with the energy needed to maintain optimal rotation. Good pickup. E6. The biggest damage increase for him, therefore for maximizing his damage. This one is recommended. And that is the end of the current Erudition unit's Eidolons review. Hopefully, you now have a better understanding of the strengths of each Erudition unit, as well as their weaknesses, and can start planning ahead for which one of them to target when they will rerun, or when they will spook you after a 50-50 loss. I would like to know what are your plans for your Erudition roster. Are you planning on starting to invest vertically in your Erudition units? And if so, how far are you planning to go? Or how far have you already gotten? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I am Professor Veritas Ratio, and remember, stay smart and sexy.